This is the fastest slow car you will ever get to drive and see. This is a 1992 Honda Beat. Straight from Japan. It's an official K car, a 1992 Honda Beat produced only for the Japanese market. 3 cylinders, 600cc, 63 horsepower, fuel injected, triple throttle bodies, mid-engine, high revving motor, 8,500 RPM through every single gear. Name me another vehicle that you can drive through every single gear as if you stole it and not get in trouble by the law. You don't even really have to slow down much for corners. This thing handles like it's on rails. You feel like you're doing 140 miles an hour and you're doing about 45, but it is so much fun. This car was designed by Pininfarina, and it was also the last car to be signed off by Mr. Honda himself, the founder of Honda. It's the last car he signed off on before he passed away. So this car has a little bit of history to it, and it makes it a little bit more special. It's also the first of the notorious ABC cars, being the Honda Beat, then the AutoZam AZ1, and the Suzuki Cappuccino came out after to compete with this. But following 1991, there was a recession in Japan, and all 3 cars didn't sell very well and kind of hung around. So the market kind of died until the early 2000s. Now, I will say, in looking at a lot of Honda Beat reviews, people notoriously say it's a slow car, but it's actually not. I routinely have it at about 120 kilometers an hour, which is in the 80s, I believe. It is officially governed at 85 miles per hour. This thing does feel like it has get up and go, and that's really all that matters at the end of the day. What's better than having a car that rides like a go-kart and feels like a blast to drive? Having it 90'd out. Zebra interior, zebra floor mats, zebra seats, open air mid-engine cartoons all over the place. This one has an airbag, which is a pretty rare option. So for this car, this is pretty stock. Silver is fairly rare color. It does have the fog lights. It has an anti-roll bar in the front, and it has an HKS exhaust that I put on. I took the factory exhaust off and put that on. It's not much louder, sounds a little throatier. Dual exhaust just looks cool. You can't go wrong. I wanted to keep the stereo, even though the stereo is pretty much dead, so I wired in an amp. This car has aftermarket rims. The stock Beat came with Steelies or special phone dial rims. For those of us who are also Porsche fans, you'll recognize the phone dials, and Honda took that spirit and put it into this car. It's a staggered rim. Another fact that Doug got wrong. It was 14s in the rear, 13s in the front, and he said there were 14s all around, which is not true. My car didn't come with it. My car came with aftermarket snow tires and wheels, so I have an extra set, and I put these Vision wheels on. I did 14 on all 4 corners, but I staggered the tire size to give it that low stance. I also have stock suspension on here, and the only other thing I have is this MR2 non-Honda Toyota windscreen, which for some oddball reason bolts right in as if it was made for it. One of the interesting things about this that people don't see is the driver's seat is actually larger than the passenger seat. It's a little bit wider, it's comfortable. Yes, it's hard to get in this vehicle, but once you are in, you feel like you're in a regular car, which just makes it a complete blast to drive. The other thing with the convertible top, this has an aftermarket top that I installed, cloth. Robbins, who manufactures the top, is actually located here in the USA, and they sell them. 600 bucks and you're topless. And it's cloth and not the vinyl that's typically ratted out and all worn out. Now this car, I actually imported myself from Japan. I've imported some trucks, I've gone through brokers, and I said for this one I want to try doing it all by myself. I got it through Japan Car Direct. I watched the auctions every night, and I would talk with the guy at Japan Car Direct every night, reviewing the auction sheets and giving him my top bids. It took a couple months and a lot of late nights, but I finally found this one, and I won the bid. I paid about $2,700 for it, but that was just the start of it. There were transport fees across the island of Japan. There were parking fees. Yes, they always say there's free storage until it can get on a ship, but that's really not always the case. It's usually a smaller amount of time. There's the waiting for the ship itself. There's the maintenance on the car. I had the timing belt and water pump done in Japan, because it was $600 or $700 versus probably north of $1,000 to have it done here. And then all the fees on the ship, the brokerage fees, getting it into port. My advice, I did everything step by step, and I have to say I probably would never do it again. One thing that you won't see in groups, if you're thinking about importing any type of car, remember, as a 1 or 2 time importer, you have no pushback. You can get nickel and dimed throughout the whole journey. In the end, I think I paid about $10,000 at my door, transported. I ended up having to have it shipped to Maryland and then transported up to Connecticut. It was a lot of different things. And then it's about $1,000 in Connecticut just to get it registered, between the inspections and the translations and all this stuff that they make you go through. Now, on the flip side, I have an Acty truck, and that I went through a broker in New York. Still had all the same fun. I picked it out in Japan, exactly what I wanted. I looked at all the pictures on all the different sites. I think that one came from Car from Japan, my Acty, and said, this is what I want. And my broker was able to give me a 2-year door price. He's a mechanic too, so it gets to his house first. And then in my case, I pick it up, but he can also ship to anywhere in the US. But he doesn't get nickel and dimed because he does 40 cars a year. And you save a lot of money because he doesn't have a brick and mortar shop. So he's just doing it out of his house. So you both make out in the end. And I have to say, for the next car I import, should I do it again, I'll go just directly through my broker. One thing about these cars is our good friend Doug, if you're a car enthusiast, you know Doug, he did a review of the Honda Beat, and he really didn't give it justice. He didn't note the pedigree and some of the history that went with the car. He was really giving it a hard time about the triple throttle bodies, which make a huge difference in the speed and the sound. And also, most importantly, the car he was demonstrating, which was going on Cars and Bids and sold for $15,000, was an absolute rat. It was missing the stereo. It was missing trim pieces. If I recall, it had high mileage. It had rot on it. It was such a disappointment and a kick in the pants to any real Honda Beat enthusiast. So I love Doug. A lot of us do. I really value his opinion. And now that I'm filming these videos, I can appreciate what it takes to go into them. But man, he missed the mark on the Honda Beat. All right, let's take this thing for a drive. Like I said, you got to kind of fold yourself in. But once you're in, it's nice and comfy. $8,500 every gear. You see people go on these test drives and they drive them like a baby. Like at 4,000 RPMs. This car will go nowhere at 4,000 RPMs. And like I said, it handles like a dream, so you really don't even need to downshift to corners. And we'll get on the highway. That's the other thing, you kind of have to rev just to take off. So while it's a slow car, it certainly feels fast enough to me. We're in 4th gear, 110 kilometers, approaching 120 kilometers an hour. And now we're stuck behind traffic. And this isn't even traffic. They're doing 45, 50 miles an hour. Just listen to that engine hum. The other thing, if you get a Honda Beat, the most important thing to do, and it's not pompous, it's not arrogant, get yourself a vanity plate that says something that's a Beat. Otherwise, everybody that you see at the gas station or going to pick up takeout is going to ask you what it is. So if you have the license plate, it definitely lowers the amount of questions. But this car sparks a lot of conversation, so be prepared for that. Now, we're going to be going up a hill in a second that gives a lot of cars a hard time. But this, as long as you rev it out, it's nothing. And like I said, if you want to slow down for corners and downshift, you can. In this case, since it's my street, I have to. In the end, would I buy another one? Absolutely. I only bought this to flip it, make some money, but I can't let it go. I have nowhere to store cars, but it fits in my shed. So I'm keeping it. It's a blast, and I definitely recommend at least trying one out.